in which Rabbit has a busy day, and we learn what Christopher Robin does in the mornings. It was going to be one of Rabbit's busy days. As soon as he got up, he felt important, as if everything depended on him. It was just the day for organising something, or for writing a notice signed with Rabbit, or for seeing what everybody else thought about it. It was a perfect morning for hurrying round to Pooh and saying, "Very well then, I'll tell Piglet," and then going to Piglet and saying, "Pooh thinks, but perhaps I'd better see Owl first." It was a captainish sort of day, when everybody else said, "Yes, Rabbit," and "No, Rabbit," and waited until he had told them. He came out of his house and sniffed the warm spring morning as he wondered what to do. Kanga's house was nearest, and at Kanga's house was Roo, who said, "Yes, Rabbit," and "No, Rabbit," almost better than anybody else in the forest. But then there was another animal there nowadays, a strange and bouncy Tigger. He was the sort of Tigger who was generally out front when you were showing him the way anywhere, and was generally out of sight when you came at last to the place and proudly said, "Here we are." "No, not Kanga's," said Rabbit thoughtfully to himself. He curled his whiskers in the sun and tried to make sure he wasn't going there. He turned to the left and trotted off in that direction, which was the way to Christopher Robin's house. "After all," said Rabbit to himself, "Christopher Robin depends on me. He's fond of Pooh and Piglet and Eeyore, and so am I, but they haven't any brain, not to notice. He respects Owl, but you can't help respecting somebody who can spell Tuesday, even if they don't spell it right. But spelling isn't everything. There are days when spelling Tuesday simply doesn't count. And Kanga is too busy looking after Roo, and Roo is too young, and Tigger is too bouncy to be of any help. So there's really nobody but me when you come to look at it. I'll just go and see if there's anything he wants doing, and then I'll do it for him. It's the day for doing things." He trotted along happily, and by crossed the stream and came to the place where his friends and relations lived. There seemed to be even more of them than usual this morning, and having nodded to a hedgehog or two, with whom he seemed to be too busy to shake hands, and having said good morning," to some of the others, and "Ah, there you are," kindly to the small ones, he waved a paw at them over his shoulder and was gone, leaving such an air of excitement and I don't know what behind him, that several members of the beetle family, including Henry Rush, made their way at once to the 100-acre wood and began climbing trees in the hope of getting to the top before it happened, whatever it was, so that they might see it properly. Rabbit hurried on to the edge of the 100-acre wood, feeling more important by the minute, and soon he came to the tree where Christopher Robin lived. He knocked at the door, and he called out once or twice, and then he walked a little way, put his paw up against to keep the sun out, and called to the top of the tree. And then he turned all around and shouted, "Hello!" and "I say, it's Rabbit!" But nothing happened. Then he stopped and listened, and everything stopped and listened with him, and the forest was very lone and still and peaceful in the sunshine, and suddenly 100 miles above him a lark began to sing. "Bother," said Rabbit, "he's gone out." He went to the green front door just to make sure. He was turning away, feeling that the morning was all spoilt now, when he saw a piece of paper on the ground, and there was a pin, as if it had fallen off the door. "Ha!" said Rabbit, feeling quite happy again. "Another notice!" And this is what it said. "Gone out, Baxon, busy, Baxon, CR." "Ha!" said Rabbit. "I must tell the others," and he hurried off importantly. The nearest house was Owl's, and to Owl's house in the 100-acre wood he made his way. He came to Owl's door, and he knocked and rang and knocked, and at last Owl's head came out and said, "Go away, I'm thinking." "Oh, it's you," which is how he always began. "Owl," said Rabbit shortly, "you and I have brains, the others have fluff. If there is any thinking to be done in this forest, and when I say thinking, I mean thinking, you and I must do it." "Yes," said Owl, "I was." "Read that." Owl took Christopher Robin's notice from Rabbit and looked at it nervously. He could spell his own name, W-O-L, and he could spell Tuesday so that you knew it wasn't Wednesday. And he could read quite comfortably when you weren't looking over his shoulder and saying, "Well," all the time. And he could, "Well," said Rabbit. "Yes," said Owl, looking wise and thoughtful. "I see what you mean, undoubtedly." "Well?" "Exactly," said Owl. "Precisely," he added after a little thought. "If only you had not come to me, I should have come to you." "Why?" said Rabbit. "For that very reason," said Owl, hoping that something helpful would happen soon. "Yesterday morning," said Rabbit solemnly, "I went to see Christopher Robin. He was out, and pinned on this door was this notice." "The same notice? A different one?" "But the meaning was the same. It's very odd." "Amazing," said Owl, looking at the notice again and getting, just for a moment, a curious sense of feeling that it had happened to Christopher Robin's back. "What did you do?" "Nothing." "The best thing," said Owl wisely. "Well," said Rabbit again, as Owl knew he was going to. "Exactly," said Owl. For a little while he couldn't think of anything else, and then all of a sudden he had an idea. "Tell me, Rabbit," he said, "the exact words of the first notice. This is very important. Everything depends on this. The exact words of the first notice." Well, it was the same as this one, really. Owl looked at him and wondered whether to push him off the tree. But feeling that he could always do that afterwards, he tried one more to find out what they were talking about. "The exact words, please," he said, as if Rabbit hadn't spoken. "It just said, 'Gone out, Baxon.' The same as this, only it says 'busy Baxon' as well." Owl gave a great sigh of relief. "Ah," said Owl, "now we know where we are." "Yes, but where is Christopher Robin?" said Rabbit. "That's the point." Owl looked at the notice. To one of his education, the reading of it was easy. Gone out, Baxon, busy, Baxon. Just the sort of thing you'd expect to see on a notice. "It's quite clear what's happened, my dear Rabbit," he said. "Christopher Robin has gone somewhere with Baxon. He and Baxon are busy together. Have you seen a Baxon anywhere in the forest lately?" "I don't know," said Rabbit. "But what I came to ask you is... That's what I came to ask you. What are they like?" "Well," said Owl, "the spotted or herbaceous Baxon is just like, at least, he said, it's really more of course, he said, it really depends on the..." "Well," said Owl, "the fact is, I don't know what they're like," said Owl frankly. "Thank you," said Rabbit, and he hurried off to see Pooh. Before he'd gone very far, he heard a noise, and he stopped and listened, and this was the noise. Noise by Pooh. "Oh, the butterflies are flying, now the winter days are dying, and the primroses are trying to be seen. The turtle doves are cooing, and the woods are up and doing, for the violets are bluing in the green. Oh, the honeybees are gumming their little wings and humming, and the summer which is coming will be fun. And the cows are almost cooing, and the turtle doves are mooing, which is why a Pooh is pooing in the sun. For the spring is really springing, and the skylark is singing, and the bluebells are ringing can be heard. And the cuckoo isn't cooing, but he's cucking and ooing, and a Pooh is simply pooing like a bird." "Hello, Pooh," said Rabbit. "Hello, Rabbit," said Pooh dreamily. "Did you make that song up?" "I sort of made it up," said Pooh. "It isn't brain," he went on humbly, "because you know why, Rabbit, but it comes to me sometimes." "Ah," said Rabbit, who never let things come to him, but he always went out and fetched them. "Well, the point is, have you seen a spotted or herbaceous Baxon in the forest at all?" "No," said Pooh. No. I saw a tigger just now." "That's no good." "No," said Pooh, "I thought it wasn't." "Have you seen Piglet?" "Yes," said Pooh. "I suppose that isn't any good either," he said meekly. "Well, it depends if he saw anything." "He saw me," said Pooh. Rabbit sat down on the ground next to Pooh, feeling much less important, and stood up again. "It comes to this," he said. "What does Christopher Robin do in the mornings nowadays?" "What sort of thing?" "Well, Can you tell me anything you've seen him do in the morning these last few days? Well, said Pooh, we had breakfast together yesterday by the pine trees. I had made up a little basket, just a fair-sized little basket, an ordinary biggish sort of basket full of— Yes, said Rabbit. I mean later than that. Have you seen him between 11 and 12? Well, said Pooh, at 11 o'clock. Well, 11 o'clock I usually get home about then, because I have 1 or 2 things to do. Or 11:15 then. Well, said Pooh, past. Yes, said Pooh, at past, or perhaps later I might see him. And now he did think of it, he began to remember he hadn't seen Christopher Robin so much lately. Not in the mornings. Afternoons, yes. Evenings, yes. Before breakfast, yes. Just after breakfast, yes. And then, perhaps— See you again, Pooh, and off he'd go. That's just it, said Rabbit. Where? Perhaps he's looking for something. What? Said Rabbit. That's just what I was going to say, said Pooh. And he added, perhaps he's looking for a herbaceous or spotted baxen. Yes, said Pooh, one of those. In case it isn't. Rabbit looked at him severely. I don't think you're helping, he said. No, said Pooh, but I do try, he said humbly. Rabbit thanked him for trying and said he would go now and see Eeyore, and Pooh could walk with him if he liked. But Pooh, who felt like another verse of his song was coming on, he would wait for Piglet. Goodbye, Rabbit. So off Rabbit went. But as it happened, it was Rabbit who saw Piglet first, and Piglet had got up early that morning to pick himself a bunch of violets, and when he picked them, he put them in a pot in the middle of his house, and it suddenly came over him that nobody ever picked Eeyore a bunch of violets, and the more he thought of it, the more he thought how sad it was to be an animal that never had a bunch of violets picked for them. So he hurried out again, saying to himself, Eeyore, violets, and then violets, Eeyore, in case he forgot, because it was that sort of day. He picked a large bunch and he trotted along, smelling them, feeling very happy until he came to the place where Eeyore was. Oh, Eeyore, began Piglet nervously, because Eeyore was busy. Eeyore put out a paw and waved him away. Tomorrow, said Eeyore, or the next day. Piglet came a little closer to see what it was. Eeyore had 3 sticks on the ground and was looking at them. 2 of the sticks were touching at one end, but not the other, and the 3rd stick was laid across them. Piglet thought perhaps it was some kind of trap. Oh, Eeyore, he began, Is that little Piglet? Said Eeyore, still looking hard at his sticks. Yes, Eeyore, and I— Do you know what this is? No, said Piglet. It's an A. Oh, said Piglet. No, not O, A, said Eeyore severely. Can't you hear, or do you think you have more education than Christopher Robin? Yes, said Piglet. No, said Piglet very quickly, until he came closer still.
That's not an A.
Christopher Robin says it's an A, and it's an A until someone else treads on it, said Eeyore sternly. Piglet jumped backwards and smelt his violets. Do you know what an A means, little Piglet? No, Eeyore, I don't. It means learning. It means education. It means all the things that you and Pooh haven't got. That's what an A means. Oh, said Piglet again. I mean, does it? He explained quickly. I'm telling you. People come and go in this forest and they say, it's only Eeyore, so it doesn't count. They walk to and fro saying, ha, ha. But do they know anything about A? No, they don't. It's just 3 sticks to them. But to the educated, mark this, little Piglet, to the educated, not meaning Poohs and Piglets, it's a great and glorious A. Not, he added, just something that anybody can come and breathe on. Piglet stepped back nervously and looked around for help. Here's Rabbit, he said gladly. Hello, Rabbit. Rabbit came up importantly and nodded to Piglet and said, Ah, Eeyore, in the sort of voice where you would be saying goodbye in about 2 minutes. There's just one thing I wanted to ask you, Eeyore. What happens to Christopher Robin these days, in the mornings?" "What's this that I'm looking at?" said Eeyore, looking at it. "3 sticks," said Rabbit promptly. "You see," said Eeyore to Piglet. He turned to Rabbit. "I will now answer your question," he said solemnly. "Thank you," said Rabbit. "What Christopher Robin does in the mornings, he learns. He becomes educated. He instaurates, I think that's the word he mentioned, but I may be referring to something else. He instaurates knowledge. In my small way, I also, if I have the word right, am doing what he does. That, for instance, is..." "An A," said Rabbit, "but not a very good one. Well, I must get back and tell the others." Eeyore looked at his sticks and then at Piglet. "What did Rabbit say it was?" "An A," said Piglet. "Did you tell him?" "No, Eeyore, I didn't. I expect he just knew." "He knew? You mean this A thing is something Rabbit knows?" "Yes, Eeyore. He's very clever, Rabbit is." "Clever?" Eeyore said scornfully, putting his foot heavily on his 3 sticks. "Education," said Eeyore bitterly, jumping onto his 6 sticks. "What is learning?" said Eeyore as he kicked his now 12 sticks into the air. "A thing Rabbit knows. Ha!" "I think," said Piglet, began nervously. "Don't," said Eeyore. "I think violets are rather nice," said Piglet, and he laid a bunch of them in front of Eeyore and scampered off. The next morning the notice on Christopher Robin's door said, "Gone out. Back soon. C.R." Which is why all the animals in the forest, except of course the spotted and herbaceous Baxen, now knew what Christopher Robin did in the morning.